You mean besides the precursors? Well, the only information we have is secondhand based on some research by a Chenzetsu historian that I read at the academy. Kzer-Za, the historian, found some evidence that there was a group of alien races who formed an interstellar empire not too far from here about 22,000 years ago. The only species in this empire actually lived in our region of space was a race of rock-like creatures who lived in the Vulpeculae constellation. The presence of the hostile androsynth in that part of space severely limited Kzer-Za's research. He never even found out the race's name.
The Ur-Quan? The long brownish guys from the milieu with all the eyes and arms? They used to come visit us regularly about 3 drons ago. They told us about all the interesting things they found from their scouting missions. They were really nice. Why do you fight with them? But the Ur-Quan were such good guys. They had lots of interesting things to tell us about, and they never got impatient with our questions. Well, I guess a lot can happen to a species in 3-Dron, like turning green and evil. Years? Oh, you mean Dron. Well, let's see. There was the Melnorme just a few rotations back. Then we go all the way back over 3 Dron ago to the Ur-Quan and the other milieu guys. The Yuli and the Draw, I think. Let me remember. That was a long, long time ago. I was only a nymph then. Oh yes, that's it. The Sentient Milieu was a cooperative association of sentient alien species. The Yuli, the Draw, the Taalo, the Mael-Num, the Faz, and the Ur-Quan, who lived across a wide section of the galaxy. They talked with us fairly frequently for almost half a Dron. Then suddenly, the visit stopped, and we haven't heard from them since.
Almost 25,000 of your years ago, there existed near this region of space an association of star-faring races called the Sentient Milieu. This group formed over several thousand years to mutually enrich their respective cultures, to provide a safe creche for emerging sentient species, and to afford themselves a degree of protection from external hostilities via military alliance. Of the 7 most active milieu members, the most famous race, indeed, you know them well, Captain, were the Ur-Quan. The Ur-Quan evolved on a harsh planet, orbiting a star outside this region of space. They were solitary predators, like your praying mantis, Captain, or polar bear, who had a very limited set of social behaviors, most of which dealt with sex. Since they had to compete for survival against many physically superior species, the Ur-Quan evolved intelligence and tool use in much the same way as your own species. The Ur-Quan also learned to master their fierce territoriality, to build a cooperative planetary culture. When the Ur-Quan were discovered by the Taalo, they had just begun exploring their solar system in crude atomic vehicles. Although the Ur-Quan attacked what they thought to be an invader, the Taalo were patient. They explained the purpose of the Sentient Milieu and offered the Ur-Quan membership. The Ur-Quan recognized the benefits that such a system provided, and once more conquered the hunting beast within themselves, to become cooperative, productive members of the milieu. This lasted for several thousands of years. just over 20,000 years ago, when your ancestors were learning to chart the course of the moon and stars on animal horns. The sentient milieu spanned 500 light years and included the membership of 100 worlds. Like all other star travelers, they had discovered ruins and relics of a far more ancient culture, which your species calls the precursors. Explorers from many species spent their lives trying to piece together this ancient mystery, but of all races, the Ur-Quan were the most bold adventurers. Their scouts, flying single ships, penetrated far into uncharted space and landed a million worlds. On one such mission, a young Ur-Quan made planetfall on a small, light-bearing alien world to identify some anomalous energy readings, occasionally a sign of precursor installations. Instead, the Ur-Quan found a small, hideous creature, a Dnyarri. Before the scout was able to defend itself, the Dnyarri creature took control of the Ur-Quan's mind and commanded the scout to place the Dnyarri aboard the Ur-Quan's ship, along with hundreds of its evil brood. Then, the Ur-Quan returned to the heart of the milieu, landing on its capital planet. Within hours, every resident of the planet was a Dnyarri slave. Within a month, Dnyarri compelled starships and spread the evil, psychic creatures across the entire milieu. When the Dnyarri took control over the milieu, one race fought back, the Taalo. These slow, quiet creatures were silicon-based life forms, but bore little resemblance to the modern Kzer-Za. Taalo were natural immunes to the Dnyarri's psychic compulsion. They were unaffected by the creature's power, and the Dnyarri would not permit anyone to exist outside their control. So they ordered the remaining races of the milieu to attack and destroy the Taalo home planet. This planet was one of the few milieu worlds located in this region of space. I believe you call their star Delta Vulpeculae. Their home was a moon revolving about the second planet. I'm sad to say that the Taalo were indeed eliminated. However, at the time of their devastation, they had completed a device which they thought would give other races psychic immunity like their own. What happened to this device, this shield? It's hard to say. Maybe it was destroyed in the attack on their homeworld. Maybe not. In the Dnyarri's new empire, the Ur-Quan were the favored slaves. This is probably because the Ur-Quan were the most psychically sensitive, the most easily compelled. As the centuries of Dnyarri dominance passed, what was once the sentient milieu deteriorated and degenerated into a great galactic gulag. Alien races which did not serve with the efficiency and speed demanded by the Dnyarri were ruthlessly burned from the faces of their worlds. The agents of this genocide were inevitably the Dnyarri's favored pet, the Ur-Quan. After almost 2,500 years of unrelenting Dnyarri control, there were only 4 living member races of the once great Sentient Milieu. By this point, the Dnyarri had used genetic manipulation to split the Ur-Quan into 2 subspecies. The green Ur-Quan. Scientists, technicians, and administrators who were responsible for maintaining the limited infrastructure of the Dnyarri civilization, and the black Ur-Quan, who filled the ranks of basic laborer and combat soldier. Then, a chance discovery by an Ur-Quan named Kzer-Za led to the violent overthrow of the Dnyarri slave empire. The Ur-Quan named Kzer-Za was a green, a researcher specializing in repairing the mental damage inflicted by long-term exposure to the Dnyarri's psychic compulsion. By this point in history, the Dnyarri had grown lax in their dominance, and on occasion accidentally permitted their slaves moments of self-direction. Kzer-Za was able to use those few scattered minutes to compose a theory. From its observations, Kzer-Za realized that when a slave died, the Dnyarri disconnected from the slave's mind, lest it too be dragged down to death. Further, the Ur-Quan scientist uncovered the fact that when a slave underwent great pain, the Dnyarri temporarily disconnected, but that the degree of pain had to be extreme, nearly lethal. Kzer-Za chose its moment carefully. It waited until it was near an open transmission unit. Then, in a short moment of mental freedom, the Ur-Quan injected itself with a dose of acidic poison, sending incredible waves of pain through its long body. In the few moments before its death, Kzer-Za was able to wrest control of the transmitter to send word of its discovery across the planet and into space as well. Before the Dnyarri knew what was happening, Ur-Quan everywhere were hacking at their own bodies with chunks of glass, burning themselves horribly, doing anything that would give them the few seconds of freedom necessary to find the nearest Dnyarri and crush the bleeding creature. As they gained longer and longer periods of control, the Ur-Quan developed new tools and weapons to destroy their evil masters. The most gruesome of these devices was the excruciator, a mechanism which was inserted directly into the brain and generated a constant stream of agony. The Dnyarri could not bring themselves to make the necessary mental connection with these tortured Ur-Quan. They were slaughtered by the thousands. The Ur-Quan slave revolt was won. When the last Ur-Quan was free of psychic compulsion, when the last free Dnyarri was dead, the combined might of the Ur-Quan starfleets met in orbit above the Dnyarri homeworld. They had come together to make 2 important decisions. First, how to punish the few frightened Dnyarri left below on the planet's surface. Second, how to ensure that never again would the Ur-Quan be made slaves. The first decision was made swiftly. The Dnyarri would not be allowed to die. That was too kind of fate. Instead, the creatures would be genetically modified into sub-sentients. They would become dumb animals. These low creatures would be further debased by serving the Ur-Quan for all eternity in the most demeaning way the Ur-Quan could imagine, acting as translators, making physical contact with other species, whom the Ur-Quan now considered grossly inferior to themselves and revolting. The second decision, how to ensure their freedom permanently, caused great turmoil. Following the successful Ur-Quan slave revolt, the Ur-Quan met to decide how to ensure their freedom. The green Ur-Quan, who called themselves the Kzer-Za in honor of the Ur-Quan who triggered the revolt, wished to establish the path of now and forever, which required that all other sentient species must become slaves of the Ur-Quan or be forever imprisoned beneath an impenetrable force shield. Leading the opposition to this plan was Kohr-Ah, a charismatic fleet officer. Kohr-Ah proposed a simpler alternative, the Eternal Doctrine. Simply put, this scheme called for the systematic eradication of all sentient life in the universe, aside from the Ur-Quan. Captain, if these positions seem to you extreme or unwarranted, you must remember that the Ur-Quan had been unwilling slaves for millennia, and that each of them had to remain in agony for years in order to defeat the Dnyarri. The followers of Kzer-Za and Kohr-Ah were all on the brink of madness, but neither side would submit, and so they fought a bloody civil war. This is the last historical item we have for sale. The civil war between the green Ur-Quan, the followers of Kzer-Za, and their opponents, the death-dealing Kohr-Ah, lasted for decades. It is likely that they would have annihilated each other were it not for a chance discovery by Kzer-Za, a precursor battleship. The vessel was huge, many times the size of the Ur-Quan's vessels. The precursor ship sliced through the Kohr-Ah forces in days. The Kohr-Ah were defeated. However, in their victory, the Kzer-Za were humble. They realized that there was a chance that they were wrong, and the Kohr-Ah were right. Instead of destroying the Kohr-Ah, the Kzer-Za let them go, directing them to make their way through the stars, traveling against the spin of the galaxy. The Kzer-Za would travel in the opposite direction, and when the two Ur-Quan forces met, they would fight again in ritual combat, with the precursor battleship given to the winner. Captain, this is happening here and now. The Kzer-Za, the Ur-Quan who enslaved Earth, are fighting their ritual battle against the Kohr-Ah in a large area centered near the Craterus constellation. If the Kohr-Ah win this battle, Captain, the Kzer-Za will stand aside and let them kill us all. We believe it is your destiny to prevent this from happening.
Alien, you You have spoken words, and you have spoken them rightly. We will tell you our reasons why we enslave all other sentient life. We evolved on a hostile world, the descendants of solitary hunters. In those ancient days, there was no Kohr-Ah or Kzer-Za, only the Ur-Quan. We explored our world, and then the space beyond. Here we met the 6 races of the Sentient Milieu, which we joined as partners. It was on a routine planetfall that one of our Milieu scout ships first met the Neo-Dnyarri. They were evilly intelligent creatures who could control the minds of others. They wanted to rule the universe. We had no choice but to give it to them. For thousands of years, we were unthinking slaves to the Neo-Dnyarri. The Neo-Dnyarri had a special liking for us Ur-Quan, so they began to tinker with our genes. They built 2 Ur-Quan sub-races, one green, the Thinkers and Planners, the other black, the Warriors and Laborers. When the martyred genius Kzer-Za gave us the secret to defeating the Neo-Dnyarri, we destroyed them. Then we decided that we would never again be slaves. We would follow the path of now and forever. We decided to enslave or imprison all other intelligent life in the galaxy. We had slaves shielded one world when we learned that the Black Ur-Quan, under a new leader, Kohr-Ah, had devised the Eternal Doctrine, which called for the cleansing, the annihilation of all non-Ur-Quan sentient life. Before we could stop them, they burned the Yoktar race's home world, and were on their way to the planet of the last remaining free race. We met the Kohr-Ah in orbit above that planet. We confronted them. They would not submit. We fought. When our battle was done, the Kohr-Ah were defeated. We exiled them, sent the remnant of the Kohr-Ah fleet into the unknown reaches of the galaxy. Then we began our own migration, moving around the galaxy in the opposite direction of the Kohr-Ah. Captain, you have heard our words. Now you have a decision to make. Submit to us, the Ur-Quan Kzer-Za, or face our wrath. The words. The words. The words. Alien, you have spoken the words. You have spoken them rightly. We will explain to you about the Nyo-Dnyarri, our slave masters, the Taalo, our only friends, whom we exterminated, and our reasons why we cleanse the galaxy of all other sentient life. We have explained this before, over 20,000 years ago. Your words, why do you do this thing? echo that ancient plea. You see, alien, we were a proud and mighty race who were cruelly enslaved. For thousands of years we had no free will. We were nothing more than tools. Never again will anyone enslave our people. We cleanse the galaxy of such threats. We evolved on a hostile world, the descendants of solitary hunters. In a world where one species is the dominant killer, one's only threat is one's brother, one's sister, anyone of one's species. Civilization did not come easily to us. We earned it. We mastered our hatreds and murderous desires to form a mighty culture. In those ancient days, there was no Kohr-Ah or Kzer-Za, only the Ur-Quan. We explored our world, and then the space beyond. Here we met the 6 races of the Sentient Milieu. Here we met the Taalo, the only species we ever called friend. Our association with the Taalo and the Milieu lasted for 3,000 years. We, the Ur-Quan, who could not tolerate the presence of others, became the Milieu's scouts, their solitary explorers. Of all the species we have met, only the Taalo did not trigger our instinctive territoriality. They were the only people we could stand with, or talk to, without the hunter inside us screaming, "Kill the interloper! Rip out its life!" We believe that the same factors that made the Taalo non-threatening to us, their unusual rock-like biology, also gave the Taalo natural immunity to the Dnyarri's psychic compulsion. The Dnyarri would not permit this. After they had conquered all 6 of the other races in the milieu, they commanded us to attack the Taalo, and we did. The Taalo would not fight back. They died. It was on a routine planetfall that one of our milieu scout ships first met the Dnyarri, the creatures you know as our talking pets. But the Dnyarri were different then. They were evilly intelligent and wielded psychic powers to control the minds of others. They wanted to rule the universe. We had no choice but to give it to them. Our Ur-Quan scout ships transported the Dnyarri through the milieu. The war for dominance, such as it was quick and bloodless. Within weeks, the Dnyarri controlled all races but one, the Taalo. For thousands of years, we were unthinking slaves to the Dnyarri. Like the 5 other surviving races of the old milieu, we had no choice. The Dnyarri's compulsion was too strong to resist. But the Dnyarri were not satisfied with their slave races. The Yuli and the Drawl were inferior, they decided, and so they instructed us to incinerate their worlds, and we did. The Dnyarri had a special liking for us, Ur-Quan, so they began to tinker with our genes, to improve us, their favored slaves. Their efforts to split the Ur-Quan into 2 sub-races, the Green Ur-Quan, Effet scientists and bureaucrats, and the Black Ur-Quan, their effectuators, the builders, the fighters, the doers. The Kohr-Ah are the Black Ur-Quan, the Kzer-Za are the Green. I grow tired of talking, alien, and your time grows short. I will continue for but a moment longer. When we discovered that intense pain could block the Dnyarri's mental powers, we were able to destroy them, but it took years. Can you imagine, alien, what it must have been like to wear an excruciator? To live in endless screaming pain for months on end? No, you cannot. No, it is not. There is more you must hear. When the war was over, the great Kohr-Ah rose from our ranks and declared the path of now and forever. We would cleanse the galaxy. No one would ever threaten the Ur-Quan this way again. We had cleansed one of the 3 remaining milieu races, and were in orbit around a second's home world. From the surface came a plea, identical to the words you spoke a few moments ago. The one-eyed creatures, the Mael-Num, asked so simply, so clearly, that we felt compelled to explain. While we did so, the Kzer-Za appeared. They would not permit us to destroy, they said. Enslave, yes. Imprison, yes. But never destroy. The moment was tense. Someone opened fire. The first doctrinal war had begun. While we fought, the Mael-Num escaped. We never found them again. When our battle was done, we, the Kohr-Ah, were defeated. However, the Kzer-Za let us go. We were exiled. We traveled through space. We built the strength of our battle fleets, and continued our plan to cleanse threats from the galaxy for all Ur-Quan. You have heard our words, and perhaps you understand us a bit better. But now, it is time for us to cleanse you.
Now listen, and I shall tell you why the Ur-Quan did this to us. It was over 20,000 of your years ago, Captain, when an Ur-Quan slave raider landed on the surface of my world and began capturing my people, killing those that would not submit. How can I know this, you ask? These memories are embedded deep in my genetic structure. They cannot be forgotten. How we fought the Ur-Quan. Even then, they had a hierarchy of combat thralls, though then they called themselves by the absurd name, the Sentient Milieu. Ha! They were nothing more than thugs, especially those hideous Taalo. Those evil rock-like creatures were the worst of all. For fun, they'd take one of our children and then roll over it again and again. Oh, the war against the Ur-Quan and their milieu lasted decades. Millions of our people died, but with the forces of truth and justice at our side, we were prevailing. Then, the Taalo made their fateful discovery. A shield against our only weapon, our weak psychic powers. With that shield, they were unstoppable. We had lost. But the Ur-Quan, they were not satisfied merely with our defeat, our slavery. They wanted more. They wanted to punish us for our insolence in fighting back against them. So they devised the sickest, most cruel and perverse punishment ever imagined. They invaded our very genetic structure, hacked out enough of our minds to lobotomize us for all eternity. And then we were made their closest servants, their talking pets. This was our punishment. Over 20,000 years ago, my species was happy and carefree, living a life of peace and contentment on the surface of our world, Ventaflork. We spent our time gathering foods, creating art, and compelling each other to do the boring chores. Then, a ship from the Sentient Milieu landed, and, well, things got pretty complicated. The Sentient Milieu were a bloodthirsty empire that ruled a large section of the galaxy for thousands of years. If you've heard that the Milieu was a cooperative union of sentient species, it's lies, all lies. The Ur-Quan were just a part of the Milieu, but their dark and evil hearts infused the entire association with a sinister ambiance. Well, after we'd been in contact with the Milieu for a while, they decided to kill all of my species. Now, does that sound like a reasonable, friendly bunch of aliens? Huh? Does it, Captain? No, it does not. Well, the war was over pretty quick. My species lost. Instead of just killing us, the Ur-Quan modified our genes. Our children were born non-sentient, dumb animals. For the past 20 millennia, we Dnyarri have been serving the Ur-Quan in the most demeaning way they could imagine, acting as mindless translators who communicate the words of inferior races.
I will tell. This is Taalo Playground. Do you know? Taalo is not anymore the heavy space. They are not here. To play with Taalo, oars must spread into pretty space. There are so many good places for this here. Oars are happy. Of course, you do not know Taalo. You are campers. You cannot go into pretty space. Too bad. Yes, yes! You say words, then I say. It is fun in between. More fun than dancing. Many gravity centers in heavy space make good party places. This is why we like the new town. So many campers, and then what? Even the playgrounds. Such a surprise. At this playground, Taalo are making time jokes. It is too funny for the oars. Taalo are in heavy space, and next what? They spread to pretty space because Dnyarri are chasing them. Now, Dnyarri are sleeping, so oars can chase them. Then we can have a party. They are even better campers than you. Do not feeling bad. You are good enough campers, but not yet.